Good morning and welcome to the Wilds Homeschool Chapel. I'm Joe.
And I'm Steve.
And we're so glad you're here, where we get to hear the truth of God with the love of God so that our lives can be changed to the glory of God. Steve.
Yes.
It's a beautiful day.
It's
a beautiful day. It's
outside.
a beautiful day.
It is.
I put on a short sleeve shirt.
And I didn't.
Because I thought it was going to be so much warmer. And
that was yesterday.
Now, it was warm outside.
Yes.
And it's actually a little bit cooler inside the buildings. It's that time of year.
Yep.
You know? So we got this warm wind that comes through every once in a while. And we're like standing in snow that's melting, but there's warm wind. And so what does that mean?
It means it's spring in New England.
Yep. Spring.
Yeah, yesterday I was walking in bare grass.
Yeah.
And when I walked into the cabin area, I went to 8 inches of snow to 14 inches of snow, still in the cabin areas.
Yeah.
So
that's what we're dealing with.
It's New England.
And a lot of that snow is melting and making mud.
Oh, yeah.
And so
That's why we call it mud season.
Mud season, right?
It's definitely mud season.
What do you think? What's your best guess? You think we're going to get one more snowstorm?
Yes, I think we got one more something. It might only be like 6 inches, and it'll go away quick. But
just 6 inches.
Yeah, typically winter comes one more time and just kind of gives us a little
sucker
punch.
Yeah, one more sucker punch.
That's
so
kind of what
we're gearing up for that. We're not taking the snow shovels away.
Not yet.
Anything.
No,
we're
not yet.
We're preparing for one last snowfall.
Yep.
But that just does remind me that summer's coming.
Summer's coming.
Very quickly.
Joe, I haven't told you I've got this great idea.
What?
You know, 2 years ago we had the Western theme, and I told you we should get some cows.
Cows.
And you said no.
Okay.
And then last year we had the Knights theme. And so I said we should get some white horses and have them like grazing all over the campsite, and you said no.
No.
This year I got another idea.
Okay,
I got another idea. It's the detective theme.
Yes.
We should get like a couple of basset hounds and maybe some bloodhounds, and they can be like the camp dogs, and they can just go around the campsite, and we could even put like a hat on them or something. And wouldn't that be awesome?
No.
Joe, I just knew you were going to go for this one.
Camp dogs. All right, come on.
I mean, come on. I mean, look at our brochure, Joe.
I know.
It has dogs on it.
Dogs and, that's a raccoon.
That's true.
I'm not going to release
I'm not recommending
raccoons.
No raccoons. I like the dog thing. Like a basset hound. Who wouldn't like a basset hound?
Did you ever hear that news story about the lady who was trying to figure out how to get rid of all the raccoons on her property?
No.
And she's like, they would crowd around her whenever she's getting out of her car. So she would throw food so that they would go away. And every time she wanted them to go away, she'd throw food. And so she attracted more and more and more. And she had like hundreds of raccoons all over her property.
Wow,
So maybe we'll do that this summer. We'll just attract all the raccoons.
All right, well, I'm 0 for 3.
I'm just kidding. We're not going to do
putting
that.
animals.
No animals, sorry, not this year.
If you're on my side, just text or message him and tell him you want the dogs.
you want the dogs. Well,
release the dogs.
We got a few questions from last week. Steve, I need your help with this one.
Yes, sir.
Why are mountains so funny?
Is it because they're hilarious?
Yes! Get it? Hill areas.
I like it.
I like it
That's
too.
a good dad joke.
Why wasn't the cactus invited to hang out with the mushrooms?
No idea.
He wasn't a fun guy.
Your science people out there get that one.
Jackson also asked, what's your favorite book of the Bible?
Oh,
I think we've been asked this a couple times.
I know, but I never can answer.
Is it different every time for you?
Well, yeah, right now it's the Psalms because I'm still living in the Psalms. So Psalms or Joshua or the book of James.
Mm-hmm. Mine is Matthew, and that's why we're speaking through it.
I knew
for the series. I love Matthew.
Yes, you do.
Perrin, he says, I gave my handyman a to-do list, but he only did jobs 1, 3, and 5. Turns out he does odd jobs.
Nice.
That is so bad. That is so bad. But it's so great.
I'm kind of liking that one.
I do. I like
Can
it
I
too.
use that the next time I get requisitions to fix things?
Odd jobs? Yeah.
I only do requisitions 1, 3, and 5.
Make sure you turn in an odd one. Pearl, I like your comment. I thought it was really cool to see how God led Jesus to the wilderness. This was from last week.
Okay.
That time was developmental, and Jesus had not gone through what we would not be able to relate to him if he hadn't gone through some of those same temptations. And so we also would not get to see the good example of how to reject temptation in a godly way. So it was God's plan. Amen. It was God's plan to even let Jesus go through those temptations, and comforting to watch that.
That's some good meditation right there.
It is.
It's excellent
It is.
meditation.
I've really appreciated all y'all's your meditations and even your comments, your questions that just show that you're listening and you're reading. Another lighthearted one, Malia from Pennsylvania is saying, how do you catch a squirrel?
Squirrel trap?
Climb a tree and act like a nut. Actually, wouldn't that be how the squirrel catches you? All right, well, whatever.
You'd be good at that, actually.
You think so?
Yeah, I do.
What did one wall say to the other wall?
No
I'll meet you at the corner.
Ah.
Why do seagulls fly over the sea? If they flew over the bay, they'd be bagels. Have you not heard that one?
No,
that was a genuine laugh. I love
good.
that one.
I like that.
I thought that was like
Bagels.
so old. Okay.
Nope.
Well, let's see. Ramon? Is it Ramon or Raymond? I'm not sure. What do you call a pile of cats?
A good start.
Mountain.
Meowton.
A mountain. Don't make mountains over molehills. Why is grass so dangerous? Because it's full of blades.
Ooh.
Why shouldn't you fundraise for marathons? They just take the money and run. Why can't you put $2 in your pocket? Because 2 halves make a whole and your money will fall out.
Wow.
These are great, guys.
Very creative.
All right, so, and then Joshua, why was Cinderella chosen last for the soccer game? Because she's always leaving the ball behind. Okay. And the kind of car the disciples drove, one accord. Okay. What do you call a really cute door? Adorable.
Okay.
Okay.
Never thought of a cute door before, so it's a little out of my realm. Maybe some of the interior designers out there.
We're on a roll here, guys.
Yes.
I better quit while I'm ahead.
Yeah.
And because also I've got a lot to go through. I am so excited. I was telling Steve before, we're going through Matthew 5 to 7, and he's like, the whole thing? Yes, we are going to. We're going to dive in today.
Better fasten your seatbelts, folks.
It is an overview, but what I love about this whole study is we're talking about our King Jesus, and beholding him, observing Jesus in the Gospels. We have clear evidence that Jesus is our King. We just have to submit to him. And so today we're learning about his teachings.
And I love that passage.
I do
because it
too.
tells us how life's going to go in his kingdom.
Yeah.
And how different it is in his kingdom than in our kingdom.
Yeah, actually, this is one study I wanted to reference. This is one that Rand wrote on the Sermon on the Mount. It's called A Right Side Up Attitude in an Upside Down World. And even the print, you have to kind of turn it upside down to read it. But this is such a great study. And if you want to know more about Matthew 5 to 7, here's 6 weeks that you could spend studying through in a devotional. We have these on our online store. You
Even
can get
that's only a good start.
It is.
There's so much in there.
There's so much. And so, without further ado, we need to get to it. So,
All right.
Steve's going to slip off the screen.
Have a good day.
See you later. And the rest of us, let's take our Bibles and let's go to Matthew chapter 5. Like I said, I won't be able to deal with every aspect of Matthew 5. I will only dip in and just barely skim the surface, but I want to whet your appetite to see what this is all about. And the title of this lesson is called The Teaching King. Kings historically, they rule, they reign, and they tell people what to do. But this king, Jesus, we see him teaching. And in his teachings, he's defining what is called righteousness. And that's why I even love the title of this whole book, A Right Side Up Attitude. In other words, this is how to live a righteous life in an upside-down world or an unrighteous world. If you think about it this way, the king, he's redefining everything. Jesus is redefining everything. If you were to walk into a classroom one day and you think, maybe you think you already understand the subject. Maybe it's one of your favorite subjects. Maybe it's like U.S. history, and you're like a history buff. You love it. And so you've studied it, and you've memorized the answers, you've memorized the rules, you've mastered the lessons, and you think you know what it looks like, this subject. And the teacher walks in and says, "You've learned it all wrong." What? You mean I don't know what I'm learning? I learned it all wrong. Let's say it's math, and you've been learning how to add and subtract and multiply, and you've learned it all wrong. And that's what happens basically in Matthew 5, where people thought they understood righteousness. Think about this, the Pharisees in this time period, they built this entire religious system around it. They had hundreds of rules that they would follow. They had traditions. They had these public displays of spirituality. And this was their understanding of righteousness. But when Jesus sits down on the mountain and he begins to teach, he actually does something very startling. He doesn't simply adjust their understanding. He redefines it completely. And you'll see this in the way that he teaches. He says, "Blessed are the poor. Blessed are the persecuted." That's totally against what you would naturally think. He would say, you have heard that it was said of old, such and such. Here's what you think you heard, but this is what I say. And he elevates everything to a kingdom level. And so these people that are listening, these are not just listeners. These are people who are being taught by the teacher. And they're listening to the king teach. So Matthew chapter 5, it goes all the way through chapter 7. If you have a red letter Bible, you'll notice that there's all red letters. I mean, this is a pretty long sermon, and if this is just a real quick overview, it could have been much, much longer. And so all of these teachings in all this red letter, you almost need to go through this on your own. Just read through the entire section so you can understand all these things. But let's start with just this first point, that the king, he starts out by describing the character of his people. In Matthew 5, verses 3 to 12, he describes the character of his people with what we often call the Beatitudes. The Beatitudes. I want you to notice the surprising pattern that we see here, and even some of the things stand out about these character qualities of his people. So first of all, the kingdom citizens that Jesus is talking to, these Christians, he recognizes their spiritual poverty. And he wants them to recognize that they are poor in spirit. So Matthew 5, verse 3, it says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Again, this is upside down thinking. Now, poor in spirit, think about what that means. Spiritually bankrupt. If you're poor, you don't have any money, but this is talking about spiritually, you don't have anything in and of your own self. So it's this recognition that I have nothing to offer God. I need his mercy. And so the doorway to the kingdom is this humility. It is humbling yourself and saying, God, I need you. I'm not good enough to enter into the kingdom by myself. I am humbling myself here. And so kingdom citizens, they actually grieve over their spiritual poverty, but they also grieve over their sin. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 4, it says, "Blessed are they that mourn." They grieve, they mourn, for they shall be comforted. Now, what he's saying here, this is not merely mourning over hardship. And inevitably, there will be hardships in life. This is mourning over sin. This is recognizing that you're a sinner and you've sinned against a holy God and saying, I am sorry. So when your heart begins to sin, to see sin in the way that God sees it, all of a sudden you start to look at yourself as sinful and you grieve over your condition. The next thing is that kingdom citizens, they hunger for righteousness. Again, these are the Beatitudes, and he talks about hungering and thirsting and hungering after this righteousness. And not like a personal righteousness like the Pharisees, but a true righteousness. It says, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Basically, when you live this right side up life that focuses on Christ's righteousness, and you do it in such an upside down world, there's this different way of thinking about your righteousness. I think the world, what it does is it hungers for comfort. The world hungers for success, hungers for recognition. But kingdom people, they hunger for righteousness alone. They want to live lives that please God. So kingdom citizens, they hunger for righteousness. And then the next thing is the kingdom citizens, they expect opposition in their lives. They expect opposition. In verse 10, it says, blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That's really interesting. They're persecuted. And again, this idea of being blessed, happy, it's beneficial. If you're blessed, then being blessed for being persecuted, it just doesn't make sense in our minds. Again, this right side up kind of thinking in an upside down world, that means that friction is inevitable. And I think the king's people, what we're seeing is they're just going to look different. They're going to respond differently. So this kingdom citizen, what the kingdom people look like, is they are blessed, but they look very different from the rest of the world. So not only are the king's citizens and the king's people describing the character, not only does the king describe the character of his people, but he also exposes some of the false righteousness of the people. Again, he's describing the right kind of righteousness, but now he goes into exposing false righteousness. And starting in verse 17, he starts to look and even make reference to the religious leaders and what they would have believed. So righteousness, it meant an outward rule-keeping, and Jesus, he just raises the standard dramatically. He says in verse 20, he says, except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter the kingdom of heaven. Now, just for context, in their world, the scribes and the Pharisees were the good ones. They were the ones that were following all the rules. They were the ones that were very righteous and religious, okay? And they were the ones that people looked up to. And so this would have really stunned the crowd. If anyone looked righteous, it was the Pharisees. But Jesus, he begins revealing the real problem, especially for them. You see, what he's revealing is that sin is deeper than actions. Sin goes deeper than actions. He says, you have heard that it was said, but I say unto you. He uses this phrase over and over. Look at the first one, Matthew 5:21. It says, you have heard that it was said by them of old, thou shalt not kill. But I say unto you, that whosoever is angry with his brother without cause shall be in danger of the judgment. What is he doing? He's taking the commandment, thou shalt not kill, and I bet I could ask any of you right now, hey, have you ever broken that commandment? You'd be like, no, I've never broken that. I've never murdered anyone. I mean, it's like, come on, obviously, I'm good there. And a lot of people would have checked that one off, like, I'm good. I've never murdered anyone, thankfully. But what is he doing? He's raising the level. He's raising the standard. He's saying, unless your righteousness exceeds the scribes and the Pharisees, what would that be? It's not just the action, it's the attitude. See, murder begins with uncontrolled anger. And if you have anger in your heart, it's the same as murder. He's saying whoever is angry with his brother shall, without cause, shall be in danger of the judgment, just like a murderer would be in danger of the judgment. So sin is a matter. It's deeper than actions, but also sin, it begins in the heart. He goes on to another command in the Ten Commandments. And he says, you have heard that it was said, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. So Jesus moves the issue from behavior and like acting out now to the desire. Okay? When he says lust, that's just a desire. That's a very strong desire, a selfish desire for someone or something. So Jesus, he moves into this realm of desire, and he's saying that the problem isn't just what we do. Some people might say, well, I never did anything wrong with them. But your brain might have. You might have lusted just up here, and no one else knows about it. And Jesus is pointing out that desire that never even escapes your brain and your heart, your desires, that's still a sin. And that uncontrolled lust in your mind is wrong. You see, it's not just what we do, it's who we are. Yes, it will eventually come out with what we do, but check your thoughts too. And the next thing is that kingdom love, it goes beyond this natural kind of love. And I would say it's pretty easy to love people that love you. It's good. It's easy to love your friends. It's easy to love your family. But what does Jesus say? I say unto you, love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. Okay, now anyone can love people who treat them well, but when we look at kingdom righteousness, what are we saying here? Kingdom righteousness and the righteous people that are part of this kingdom, they love even their enemies. I know we're flying through this, but do you just see how Jesus is taking even the Ten Commandments and saying, you've heard this, but let me expand on that a little bit. And if you flip to chapter 6, he keeps going, and he starts to reject some of the religious performance of the people. Jesus turns to this other issue of spiritual showmanship, you could call it. Spiritual showmanship. And the Pharisees, they practiced religion publicly for recognition. They wanted people to see them. And Jesus exposes their motive. Okay? The first one, you could say giving, it should be done for God and not for applause. And what does he say? He says, take heed that you do not your alms before men to be seen of them. That basically, that was giving alms to the poor. And so he's saying, if recognition is your motive, then recognition is your reward. Basically, he started pointing out that if you do your alms to be seen by men, then that will be your reward. Simply that, you're seen by men. The next one, he talks about prayer, and he says that prayer should be this relational thing, not theatrical. And Jesus even gives a model prayer, and he says, after this manner, therefore, pray ye, our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. He points out that many of the people would go on the street corners and they proclaim things and they'd make this really big deal to other people to be seen by men. So notice the priorities that Jesus has here. It's God's name. It's God's kingdom. It's God's will. Prayer begins with God's glory, not your agenda. Not that other people will see you and think you're spiritual. He flips that whole expectation on its head. And then he talks about trust and how it should replace anxiety. Jesus addresses worry by saying, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. I think we live in this world that chases security through money and possessions and insurance and relationships that will protect you. And we try to avoid any kind of, worry about anything. And kingdom people, they actually trust the Father's care. They don't trust in a bank account. They don't run to their friends whenever they're worried about something. They run to God. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And all of the things that people typically worry about, those things will be added when you trust in him. And then in Matthew 7, again, you have to read through all of this just to get the big picture. But Matthew chapter 7, we start looking at the king's call for real obedience. The king calls for real obedience in Matthew 7. And as he starts to close the sermon with a series of warnings, what does he do? He starts talking about how we should examine our own heart first. And he says, and why? Beholdest thou the mote that's in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that's in thine own eye? You know what he's pointing out? Sometimes we're critical of other people and we're pointing out that other people are wrong in a certain way. And actually, we could be completely blinded by our own sin. He's saying, someone might have a little splinter in their eye, and that's really bad. And we should probably let them know about that splinter in their eye. But sometimes we're so focused on the splinter in someone else's eye that we totally forget that we have a big beam coming out of our eye. Jesus points out, we're all sinners. And don't be so hypocritical to think that you're without sin. But he also talks about treating others the way that God has treated you. In Matthew 7, verse 12, he says, therefore all things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, even do ye even so to them. The golden rule you might have heard of, the rule that says, do unto others as you want them to do to you. There's all kinds of different ways of looking at that rule and saying, do good to other people. Don't do bad to other people because you don't want them to do that to you. It almost sounds like a kind of a selfish motive, but what is he teaching? He's teaching that you should treat people the way that God has treated you. It should be something that you want to do for other people. And then he starts to point out that the road to life is narrow. He says, enter ye into the strait gate, because strait is the way and narrow is the way which leads unto life. And he's saying that not everyone who hears the truth follows it. He's starting to narrow the scope of who is truly in the kingdom of heaven. And he says, your life will reveal your true allegiance. In verse 20, he says, by your fruits you shall know them. Your fruits will reveal who you truly are. And sometimes it takes time to grow fruit. The final test, though, that he reveals here in this passage is this great illustration. He talks about obedience. He gives this illustration of the builder that builds his house on a rock. In verse 24, he says, therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man which built his house upon a rock. You see, the storms will eventually come. And the difference between collapse and stability is not just hearing Jesus, it's obeying him. You see, as we kind of close out this whole section, and I know that you can go through this and understand so many things, I want you to just think about those two houses. One was built on the sand and one was built on a rock. And the story goes that from the outside, they may even look identical. They may have the same design, the same materials, the same even location. But one is built on a rock, and the other one is built on sand. And then when the storms come, the winds blow, the difference is truly obvious. That Jesus is asking, he's not just asking, do you admire my teaching? He's saying, do you agree with my teaching? He's also saying, are you actually building your life on it? This is where the obedience factor comes in. It's not just knowing the teaching up in your head and saying, oh yeah, I know these things. But are you building your life on it? You see, the King has spoken, and the only life that will stand in the end is the one that's built, that's obeying the authority of the King. And so Matthew closes his sermon this way, okay? Or Jesus' sermon gets closed this way. He says that the only way to stand in the end is the one who builds his life on the authority of the King. The people were astonished at his doctrine. In Matthew 7, verses 28 and 29, it says, for he taught them as one having authority and not as the scribes. They realized something. They were not just hearing wisdom. They were hearing the King define righteousness. And the question now is the same for us. Will we build our lives on what the King says? As we apply these things, take some time to go through the homework questions and answer some of these. And we look forward to diving into the next section next week, looking at the powerful King. Jesus performing miracles and all those great things. So you don't want to miss it. We'll see you next week.